we're trying to talk about and where that term nationalism comes from. And I've been struggling like to really define it and to really know how to understand the misinterpreting or like where those ideologies are rooted in. And so I think it would be helpful to just sort of talk about like really explicitly what we mean when we say Christian nationalism.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think that it brings to mind a lot of like images and stereotypes,
Sure.
but it is really hard to define. Like we've tried to define it amongst ourselves, and so we'll just talk a little bit about some of what that could mean. But
right, and we know for a fact that people are trying to figure that out. I think Josh did some research on it, and it, like the term Christian nationalism has up like 7,000% in searches, like over like from this time last month. You know, so it's a hard concept to get your brain around for a bunch of reasons that I think we'll probably explore a little bit more as we talk. But Malta, were you able to find a good definition of it for us?
Yeah, I read like 3 or 4 articles and nobody defined it, which I was like, this is not helpful.
Cool.
You know, I was like, they would describe like, and that is where we see Christian nationalism. I'm like, well, what is it?
Yeah.
But I did stumble upon a couple of different places that felt pretty helpful. And the first one was in an article called The Dangerous Heresy of Christian Nationalism. And I think that was a guy named Brian Zahnd. I don't know.
Brian Zahnd, yeah.
Brian Zahnd. And he basically, like, this was a really basic definition, but it was really helpful for me to put some language around it. He basically said it's like the idolatrous combination of the Christian faith to American patriotism and essentially confusing America for the kingdom of God. So it's this element of like aligning specifically American values and American patriotism with our Christian faith. That there's like a link between the two that's inherent in how we live out our faith and how we live out our identity as Christians that is like has some sort of connection. And then so that was like a really good basic foundation definition for me. And then there was another place that I found it in an article from Christianity Today where they defined it as it's a set of policy prescriptions for what the nationalists believe the American government should do.
Yeah.
And so it's this political ideology actually like about American identity.
Yeah.
And so those were some of the definitions that I felt like gave some like flesh onto actually conceptualizing what that was. It's still, honestly, I'm still kind of working out like so what is it? Like,
right.
But I think that's a helpful place for me to start and understanding, there's a common American politics and Christian identity that are linked when we're talking about this pursuit of Christian nationalism.
Right.
Yeah. Along those same lines of those kind of definitions you gave, I was just listening to a podcast the other day where the guy was saying that a way that he thinks about Christian nationalism is it's the prioritization of Christian values in American policy.
Policy, yeah, that's good.
Which is a helpful definition, but illuminates a lot of problems because what are Christian values?
Yes.
It's like a big question that follows that for me. And it's like, even in defining Christian nationalism, there's a lot of problematic things that come up.